Ashes of the Asylum. They said no one came out of Marrowhill Asylum the same. That was the first thing Ella remembered hearing when she was 8 years old and overheard two social workers whispering in the hallway of her foster home. The second thing she remembered was the look in their eyes, pity, not curiosity, as they watched her play with a toy rabbit that used to belong to her mother. Her mother, Lena Greaves, had died in that place. The official record said it was a heart attack. But Ella always knew there was more. Children have a way of remembering pain, especially when no one explains it. 20 years later, Ella stood before the burned remains of Marrowhill. A twisted skeleton of brick and blackened beams. She wasn't just there to mourn. She was there to remember. And finally, to know the truth. Marrowhill Asylum burned down in 2005 under mysterious circumstances. No official cause was ever revealed. The investigation was closed in under a week. But whispers persisted of experiments, of screams in the night, of patients locked away and forgotten. Ella had spent most of her life burying her past, bouncing from one foster home to another. She'd become a social worker herself, trying to save others from the system that never saved her. But when she found a box of her mother's belongings in a dusty county records basement, everything changed. Inside were patient files, handwritten notes, photographs, and a journal charred at the edges but intact. Lena's journal. They said I was unstable. But I'm not. I know what I saw. I know what they're doing. I hear the others at night. They don't come back the same. If Ella ever reads this, tell her I loved her. I did everything I could to protect her. That one sentence lit a fire in Ella's soul stronger than the one that had destroyed Marrowhill. Ella returned to the town of Camden's Hollow, where Marrowhill had once loomed like a curse above the valley. The locals didn't like talking about the asylum. They called it bad luck. They avoided it. Some pretended it never existed. But Ella was relentless. She began asking questions, visiting old staff members, former patients, and survivors who had managed to move on but never truly heal. Each person gave her a fragment, disjointed, haunting, but real. What she found was worse than she imagined. The asylum had been a testing ground. A private pharmaceutical company had partnered with the state to conduct non-traditional treatments on vulnerable patients, mostly women. Electrotherapy, sleep deprivation, experimental drugs that blurred the line between hallucination and reality. Lena had discovered the truth. And she had tried to escape. The fire, Ella learned, had started in the East Wing, the women's ward. A riot had broken out. Patients had been locked inside while staff fled. Lena had been one of them. She died trying to lead the others out. There were no survivors from that wing. Or so the report claimed. But then Ella met Ava. A former patient who had changed her name, moved states, and lived off-grid for years. Ava had escaped through a broken window and hid in the woods for 3 days before anyone found her. She never spoke about what happened until Ella showed her Lena's journal. I remember her, Ava whispered. Your mother. She was brave. She got me out. The challenge now was bringing the truth to light. Ella wrote articles. No one published them. She spoke to reporters. They called it a conspiracy theory. Even her own employer began to distance themselves from her. She was told to move on. To let go. But Ella had inherited more from her mother than just memories. She had her strength. With the help of a young journalist named Kevin who believed in her story, they started a documentary project, Ashes of the Asylum. They used the journal, the interviews, and the photos to piece together what really happened. When the first episode dropped online, it barely got any views. But by the third episode, when Ava came forward on camera and recounted everything, it went viral. People began talking. Other survivors came forward. Other families. A movement began. And the government could no longer ignore the truth. A public inquiry was launched. The pharmaceutical company was sued. Former staff were called to testify. A memorial was established at the Marrowhill site, where wildflowers now grow through the cracks of the scorched earth. Ella stood there on the anniversary of the fire, a ribbon pinned to her coat. She read her mother's name aloud with the others. But she didn't cry. Not this time. Because the truth had finally been spoken. And it echoed through the ashes. Challenges Ella faced. Dealing with childhood trauma and growing up without her mother. Battling a system that covered up abuse. Being dismissed by society and professionals. Facing emotional and psychological burdens alone. Taking on powerful institutions with little support.